Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. This week's guest, you see here with us again, Derek Galanis. Now, Derek has a very, very keen knowledge on, jujitsu and other things and mixed martial arts. I think we talked a little bit about that in our episode. And unfortunately, Colin Crandall is dealing with a family crisis. I don't want to divulge too much information, but, he couldn't join us for this week's or this month's UFC, predictions. So Derek was kind enough to step in and help us out, and we very much appreciate that. Derek, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment, my friend.
Thank you, man. No, listen, combat sports are my passion, so anytime.
Right, yeah, I knew you had a book on that too, so I was like, well, if there's anybody that can step in and knock this out of the park, so to speak, I think Derek can do it. We got UFC 293 coming up this Saturday. Are you excited about that? I think Israel, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we'll go to the main event because that's usually what catches everybody's eye. Israel Adesanya is on top of his game, but Sean Strickland is doing a lot of trash talking. He's putting out a lot of videos on Twitter, picking at Izzy. I don't know if you've seen that stuff. What fight are you looking to the most on this card?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's looking at the Adesanya fight. That's the topper. Look, it's a mismatch. According to the press, they talk about it a lot. Sean Strickland's one of those guys, and I was in the MMA game. I bounced around with Scrap Pack, Quest, Alliance affiliates for a while, and Strickland's a typical MMA guy. He's very, very tough, but his actual skill level, as far as striking goes, is limited, and it's his toughness that gets him by. But he's about to take a step up. When we saw what happened when he fought Pereira iced him in about a minute and 30 seconds. So I expect it to last a little longer with Izzy. He doesn't have Pereira's power, but yeah, at the end of the day, we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the odds right now are pretty heavy, favored to Adesanya. And that's the tricky part when you go into betting these fights. They don't have point spreads like you do in football games. You just have money lines. And, I use the Scores app to kind of look, and I know different bookmakers have different odds, but Izzy's coming in at minus 650. Now, for the betting public, most people understand what that means, but for people that don't, if a fighter's minus 650, you have to wager $650 just to win 100. So pretty steep. Considering a perfect right hand can change about anything. Sean Strickland is actually plus 450. So if you go to put 100 on him and Sean actually wins, you can win 450. A lot of people come up big like that last month with the O'Malley fight, because O'Malley, I think, was about a 200 underdog. And so if anybody puts some coin and change on him, they double their money. I don't think that'll happen here, but it is a UFC fight. One right hand can change everything. But with the main event, and we'll just work backwards on this one since we've already kind of covered it, I don't see Israel Adesanya losing this fight unless he just gets really, really sloppy. But I think what could be key, like you said, the other fight, ended in the first round against Pierre?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I may go, because these are 5 rounds fights when it gets to the championship fights. I may go that it don't go the distance. And I might possibly throw a little something down on the second and third round. I know Izzy's not necessarily known for, KO a lot of people. A lot of times he would just beat them up and consistently, smack them around for 5 rounds. But I'm thinking a second or third round, he can maybe take this fight out, because Strickland could try to start to go, overextend himself because he's losing the first 2 or 3 rounds, or, at least the first 2, and then maybe get caught with something. So I may try that. But definitely, I think I don't think this fight goes the distance. I think Strickland gets over and panics.
I think you're right. And the reason is Strickland's a grinder, right? He comes forward and he forces the fight. Well, you're going to force the fight against a really technical stand-up fighter like Izzy. Eventually, you're going to go. Might not be first round like Pereira, but I think you've called it exactly. Eventually, he's going to drop.
All right. Now, the opener fight here we got is Tyson Pedro, and I don't want to butcher this guy's last name, but we're just going to go Anton T. That's the opener fight. Now, this is a pretty even fight here. The odds are pretty even. Anton's 8-2. Tyson is 9-4, so not too far difference. What have you seen on this fight here? What's some background on this fight?
Well, the cool thing about Tyson is, like Tyson Fury, he was named after Mike Tyson. He's also the brother-in-law of Tuivasa, who's on the co-main on the card.
I was about to say, yeah, he's co-main.
Yeah, black belt in Kempo, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Now, that all having been said, he was 4-0 before he stepped into the UFC. Now he's something like 9-4. And, look, a lot of these guys, their star rose because of Whitaker, right? Whenever you're in a country, you want to put the stars in that country on the line. So he entered the UFC, and he's about a 500 fighter now. And he can thank stars like Whitaker and Adesanya for, making Australia, a hotbed of MMA where they come. And I mean, they've even had shows in Perth, like the West Coast, the mining area of Australia. So, look, Australia is a hotbed now, and he's enjoying it. So we'll see how he does, man. He's 500 so far. He's a tough guy, and he's fighting in his hometown.
Yeah. That'll be, I mean, like I said, an even money too. So, well, I think Anton might be a slight favorite at -120. But yeah, that'll be an interesting fight, man. I don't know a ton about either one of these guys, so I'll probably take a pass on that fight. If I do throw something down, probably be a little light something on Anton T. To be honest. Above that, we got Justin Taffa and Austin Lane. Now, this looks like it could be a pretty good fight. Austin Lane's coming in with an impressive record at 12-3. Justin's 6-3. So, right now I'm looking at Austin as the, probably the favorite on that one. What do you think?
So Justin is exactly like Tyson, right? He entered the UFC undefeated at 3-0. Now he's 6-3. So he's a 500 fighter in the UFC. And just like Tyson, he owes Adesanya and Whitaker for building up Australia and giving him a place to showcase himself. Now, that having been said, and this is just like Anton from the last fight, Anton and Austin are both coming off Dana White Contender Series.
Right.
Now, one of the things about coming into the UFC when you're not in the big show, and I don't consider the Contender Series really the UFC, it can be a big stage. Anton's gone 0-2 so far. Austin Lane, it's his first UFC fight. So we're going to see. I mean, usually those guys gas out. Justin Taffa's been there. He's had at least 3 fights there so far, actually 6 fights, gone 500. So I think Justin probably has the edge because he has the experience. There's a lot of people who gas their first time in the UFC cage, and you can name a million people who have done that. So that's the way I see that. I see Justin having the home field edge, and he has the experience in the UFC cage.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Austin obviously because of the record, but the thing is here, I love underdogs in the UFC. I like to see the underdog win. And Austin is actually the underdog here. He's at +175. So, almost doubling your money there if you put it on him to win. I do see your point in the gassing, though. It's a different animal. It's a different type of thing from that Contender Series to the octagon on a pay-per-view. Just that is going to have you breathing heavier, just that alone, not even counting the physical aspects of the fight. So it all depends on how he handles himself in there with his breathing. And that's a key thing when you're talking about going into that cage.
There is one other thing about Austin. He was and we've seen a lot of this now in the UFC. He was a pro football player. And those guys do okay, but they never have hit the top so far, right? Football is a much different sport than combat sports. Obviously, we've seen a lot of wrestlers hit the top, Brock Lesnar being one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that Austin or any of those football players are going to hit the top anytime soon.
Right. Now, the next match coming up, we got Felipe dos Santos against, I guess that's Manel Kape.
Yeah, I'm not going to butcher it either, man,
yeah,
but I know who he is.
Some of these names are hard, man, but 18-6 for Manel and Felipe Santos right here. I've got him undefeated right now at 7-0. That's going to be an interesting fight. Now, he is the underdog here, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, Felipe is a late replacement for Kai Kara-France, right?
Yeah.
Kai Kara-France has been an interim title challenger. He's top of the flyweight division. Kape, or whatever, however you pronounce that last name, is a fighter from Angola, and a Portuguese Angolan fighter, which is really cool to have in the UFC. Fights out of Phuket, Thailand, so that's why he's fighting over there in Australia. That's close to his home in that Oceania area. Obviously, Kape is the favorite. I mean, you haven't told me that yet, but I know it.
Yeah, he's about a 4-1 favorite, so it's -415 for him. So as we explained earlier, if you're looking to lay money down on him, you got to risk 400 to win 100 if you're talking about an outright win.
Yeah, and look, he's been on the big stage in Risen, which is the big promotion in Japan now, and he did just like what we talked about. He lost his first two fights in UFC, but now he's on a 3-fight winning streak. So that's over. Those bugs, those nerves are worked out. And I will tell you something else, Wade. I really think that Dana White sets up people coming from outside. Remember Eddie Alvarez came in from Bellator as champ, set him up against Donald Cerrone. And he lost that first fight. Didn't stop Alvarez from eventually winning the title, but Dana likes to welcome people to the UFC in nasty fashion, as if they don't have enough problems getting used to the cage. So look, Kape is beyond that now, and I don't expect Dos Santos to do anything to him. But look, some of those Brazilians, they've been fighting their whole life, and maybe he surprises us.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. That's one that, might be worth throwing a little something down on Felipe. He is undefeated. He's about a 3-1 underdog. So from my notes here, 315. So lay down 100, you can come out with 315. There's some good chances for some underdogs here in this fight. A lot of people love to go with the favorites when you're talking about UFCs, and most people do. But when you're talking about the kind of money, like I said, wagering 400 or 600 to win 100, sometimes it's just not worth it. So you got to figure out a different way to go. Maybe if a fighter's prone to getting more submissions, or if you think they're, more prone to getting KOs, or not going to reach all the way to the end of the fight. Those are the kind of things you got to look at. Now, a real interesting fight we talked about earlier. You said Tyson was actually kin to Tuivasa up here? Brother-in-law. So he's fighting Alexander Volkov, excuse me. That's going to be a fight, man, because is it Taya? Or how you pronounce it?
Tai Tuivasa. Tai.
Yeah, Tai. I've seen him fight. That is a tough dude.
Yeah, no, listen. So Tai Tuivasa is one of my favorite fighters to watch, without a doubt, right? And I had a Samoan sparring partner I was his sparring partner named Carl Taffa for years. And those Samoan guys, you can hit them with a brick, right? And they will keep on coming. And that's who Tai Tuivasa is. But all that having been said, Wade, like Tai Tuivasa is like most Samoans. He's relatively short for the heavyweight division. And three of his 5 losses have been to really long Russian or Eastern European fighters. And in Volkov, he's got an Eastern European fighter that is very long, that is peaking. He's on I think a 2-fight win streak, has beaten a lot of guys like Tuivasa, Marcin Tybura, the Polish fighter. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough fight for Tuivasa to win, but guess what? It's going to be a lot of fun while it goes.
Yeah, and Volkov, I think, is 36-10, so he's almost getting close to doubling the fights that Tuivasa's had. He's only had 15 fights. He's 15-5, so the experience definitely on Volkov's side. Money-wise, Tuivasa is actually a 200 underdog, so wager 100, win 200 if he can come through. Volkov is 245. I think this is a show, man. UFC 293. I think this is a show where we could possibly see a few upsets. I don't think we mentioned earlier the main event. I don't think we see Adesanya get upset, but I believe out of these other 4 fights, you could probably have 2 upsets in this, the way these guys are matched up. I really believe that. I'm looking forward to this fight. If I had to take anything away from this, I'm really looking forward to see how Adesanya comes back in after his huge last win, and see, that's the key, how fighters come back in and perform after a huge win. Same thing in football. I don't know if you're a big football fan, but you watched last week, Colorado, which was Deion Sanders' team, surprised everybody, knocking off TCU at home, or in TCU, excuse me, on the road. Now they're playing at home this week against Nebraska. That's a prime opportunity for a letdown. Sometimes when you have a big emotional game or a big emotional contest, then you start feeling yourself drinking your own Kool-Aid, if you will, you can have a letdown. Fighters tend to try to not let that happen as much as a whole football team, but it's still possible. It's still something you have to keep back in your mind. But I don't think Izzy is going to let that happen. I do believe he handles business, and I think he takes care of business, in the 3rd. I don't think it goes to the 4th or 5th.
Almost for sure. Like Strickland, his level of striking is so much below, and he can get away with grinding on MMA guys because most MMA guys, their level of striking is not there. With Adesanya, we know it is, so he's gonna have a long night.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'm looking forward to it, man. Derek, thank you for stepping in here and doing this. Again, we want to give all our wishes and prayers to Colin and his family. Hope everything, just works out for him the best it can. And we certainly, extend our deepest prayers to him and during this time. And Derek, thank you for stepping on the show and giving us your picks, man. Hopefully we can take your advice, my advice, and go make a little money this weekend.
All right, brother, anytime. And everybody read my book, War in the Light, if you love the fight game.
Absolutely. We'll stick that in the show notes here so they can go get it straight, link straight to it there, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Hollywood Wade. That was Derek Galanis, and this was a Bettor on the Bookmaker for UFC 293. We hope everybody makes some money. We'll see you next week on Crime and Entertainment. Derek, we'll see you, my friend.
All right, brother.